All right, thrill seekers. For today's magic trick, I am going to do a bunch of stuff, the things I go through for my readers. Or viewers, I guess. You're viewers, not readers. Well, maybe your readers too. Anyway, a guy sent me a question based on a thingy I had put up on Instagram. It was from the, what's it called, Vedanta Society? I don't know, Vedanta something or another. And they'd put up this quote by Ramana Maharshi. And this guy asked me about the quote and explaining it and so on. And instead of just explaining the quote that I put up, the Instagram version, I actually went and found the source of the quote through tremendous effort. Well, not that much effort, but, some Googling around. It took me, a few minutes to finally find the place. And then I found the book it came from, and then I downloaded the Kindle version of the book it came from, so that I could do this talk today. And instead of reading you just the Instagram quote, I'm going to read you the whole passage because it gives you a little context, and I'm not sure if the context is extraordinarily relevant, but it's interesting. So it comes from a book called Day by Day with Bhagavan. Bhagavan being Sri Ramana Maharshi. Ramana Maharshi was an Indian, you wouldn't even call him a guru. He was a spiritual guy who existed in the early 20th century, first part of the 20th century. I think he died around 1950 or so. And he had a lot of followers, and there's a lot of books by him, and I was very influenced by his writings. And this is somebody's diary who had spent a lot of time with Ramana Maharshi. And here's the entry for October 17th, 1946. This morning, Dr. Roy showed before Bhagavan how he writes, reads his watch, etc. Which is, why would you be showing that? Well, it turns out, because I flipped back a few pages in this diary, and it turns out Dr. Roy was blind. I have learned that he is an M.A. B.L. of Calcutta University, and afterwards became a Ph.D. of an American university. In the afternoon, when I entered the hall about 3 p.m., Dr. Roy was asking Bhagavan, in the case of persons who are not capable of long meditation, will it not be good enough if they engage themselves in doing good to others? Bhagavan replied, yes, it will do. The idea of good will be at their heart. That is enough. Good, God, love are all the same thing. If the person keeps continuously thinking of any one of these, it will be enough. All meditation is for the purpose of keeping out all other thoughts. After some pause, Bhagavan said, when one realizes the truth and knows that there is neither the seer nor the seen, but only the self that transcends both, that the self alone is the screen or the substratum on which the shadow both of the ego and all that it sees come and go, the feeling that one has not got eyesight and that therefore one misses the sight of various things will vanish. So he's saying this to the blind guy. The realized being, though he has normal eyesight, does not see all these things. And in parentheses it says he only sees the self and nothing but the self. After further discussion with Dr. Roy, Bhagavan added, there is nothing wrong in seeing anything, this body or the world. The mistake lies in thinking you are the body. There is no harm in thinking the body is in you. The body, world, all must be in the self, or rather nothing can exist apart from the self, as no pictures can be seen without the screen on which the shadows can be cast. That's the end of the quote. And then, in answer to a question as to what is the best way to the goal, Bhagavan said, and now here is the part that appeared on Instagram. There is no goal to be reached. There is nothing to be attained. You are the self. You exist always. Nothing more can be predicated of the self than that it exists. Seeing God or the self is only being the self or yourself. Seeing is being. You, being the self, want to know how to attain the self. It is something like a man being at Ramana Ashram, that's the place where Ramana Maharshi was, asking how many ways are there to reach Ramana Ashram, and which is the best way for him. All that is required of you is to give up the thought that you are this body, and to give up all thoughts of the external things or the not self. Easier said than done, but that's what he says. As often as the mind goes out toward outward objects, prevent it and fix it in the self or I. That is all the effort required on your part. The different methods prescribed by different thinkers are all agreed on this. The Advaita, Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita, I guess that's how you say it, schools and other schools all agree that the mind must give up thinking of external things and must think of the self or God, as they may call it. That is called meditation. But meditation being our nature, you will find when you realize the self that what was once the means is now the goal. That while once you had to make an effort, now you cannot get away from the self even if you want. So that is the quote from Sri Ramana Maharshi, and I was digging around for something in Dogen to kind of contrast or expound or expand upon this, and I came across something in the same book that I was looking at yesterday, in the video yesterday, Dogen's extensive record Eihei Koroku. And this is Dharma Hall Discourse number 15 on page 86 if you're looking at the paperback, and the translators have titled it Igniting Practice. As I keep saying, Dogen didn't give these titles, but the translators did. And here it goes. The seed of Buddhas arises from conditions. Buddha Dharma arises from the outset. When you encounter good conditions, do not stumble, but just practice. Within practice, there are both subduing and surrender. Staying here at Koshoji, that's the temple where they were living, do not stumble, but just wholeheartedly engage the way. Within wholehearted engaging of the way, there is both practice and effort. With one morning of thoroughness, 10,000 dharmas become complete. If you are not yet thorough, 10,000 dharmas stumble. Okay. So, here we go. This is the main part. Now, Zen Master Bao Zhuangje had affinity with Fayan. These are the Chinese names, and I always stumble on them. And somebody put up a comment recently telling me where I could go to learn how to pronounce these Chinese transliterations. I'm used to the Japanese names, so anyway, that's why I can't pronounce any of this stuff. The footnote here says, Bao and Zhuangji became a Dharma successor of Fayan Wenyi, founder of one of the Chinese 5 houses of Chan or Zen. Affinity here is the same character translated in the previous paragraph as condition, so that's interesting. Dogen repeats this story in a number of places, for example, and then they list the places where he repeats that story. Once Xuanji was appointed as director of the assembly of Fayan. One day Fayan said, "How many years have you been here?" So Fayan is Xuanji's teacher. "How many years have you been here?" Xuanji replied, "I have already been in the teacher's assembly for 3 years. Fayan said, "You are a student, so why don't you ever ask me about Dharma?" Good question. Xuanji said, "I dare not deceive the teacher. When I was at King Huang's place, I realized peace and joy." And there's a footnote here about who King Huang is, but we're not going to worry about that. Fayan said, "Through which words were you able to enter?" Xuanji responded, "I once asked King Huang, what is the self of the student, i.e. my own self? King Huang said, the fire boy comes seeking fire." Now, what I heard this as originally was the child of fire comes seeking fire, and the footnote says fire boy is Byoji Doji or Heitei Doji, which could also be read fire spirit's apprentice, referring to fire as one of the 5 elements in Chinese cosmology. Byojo Doji was the novice in the monastery who attended the lamps. Okay, so that's what we're talking about. The child of fire comes seeking fire, or they say the fire boy comes seeking fire. Fayan said, "Good words, only I am afraid you did not understand them." Xuanji said, "The fire boy belongs to fire. Already fire, but still seeking fire, is just like being self and still seeking self," which is very similar to what Ramana Maharshi said in the quote I just gave you. Fayan exclaimed, "Now I really know that you do not understand. If Buddha Dharma was like that, it would not have lasted till today." Xuanzhi was overwrought and jumped up. Out on the path he thought, so he jumped up, meaning he went away, he's like going to leave this place. And out on the path he thought, he, the teacher he just talked to, is the guiding teacher of 500 people. His pointing out my error must have had some good reason. He returned to Fayan's place and did prostrations in repentance. Fayan said, you should ask the question. Xuanzhi said, what is the self of the student? Same question he asked his former teacher. Fayan said, the fire boy comes seeking fire. Xuanzhi was greatly enlightened. Now here's the footnote, and the footnote isn't bad, but I think they shouldn't have put it in there, but I'm going to read it to you because it's here. Here's the footnote. Xuanzhi had only realized that the fire boy belongs to fire, not the necessity for him to actualize comes seeking. In quotes. And here's Dogen saying basically the same thing. The teacher Dogen said, previously the fire boy came seeking fire. Afterward, again the fire boy came seeking fire. Previously, why was he not enlightened, but flowed down into the path of intellection, so he just got it in his mind, but didn't understand it. Afterwards, why was he greatly enlightened and cast away the old nest? Do you want to understand? Sure we do, Dogen, tell us. After a pause, Dogen said, the fire boy comes seeking fire. Ooh, I hate these guys. But then he goes on. How much do the pillars and lanterns care about the brightness? The fire is covered with cold ashes, and while searching we don't see it. Lighting it and blowing it out again gives birth to practice. And here's a couple of footnotes, and I'm going to read them to you. The sentence is in reference, this is the lighting fire is covered with cold ashes, while searching we don't see it. And it says, this sentence is a reference to the story about Guishan studying under Baizhang. When Guishan could not find any fire in the ashes, Baizhang dug in the fireplace and pulled out an ember. And the other one is lighting it and blowing it out again gives birth to practice. Refers to the story of Denshan Shuizhuang studying under Longtan Chaoxin. Denshan asked Longtang for a lantern, and he left Longtang's room on a dark night. Longtang lit a lamp, but after handing it to Denshan, Longtang blew it out. So that's a very famous old koan story. And Denshan awakened, and it tells where to find the story. And that's all real interesting. So it's like this. This is my version of it, and it's like you have the original version, and then it gets dumbed down, and it gets dumbed down some more, and gets dumbed down some more, and then it gets to me. So here's my version, which is, the dumbest version you could get, and probably not the purest version. But the teacher will say things like, it's like the fire boy coming seeking for the fire, or it's like looking for a Ramana ashram when you're already in Ramana ashram, or the one I used on the guy who asked me the question was, it's like trying to see your own eyes, These are metaphors that are used, and you hear them again and again, and if you're me, you've spent 40 years hearing these metaphors and 40 years reading the metaphors again and again, and you've had some experiences and whatnot, and it's still, you got to hear it again and again and again. And that's just the way it is. That's really all I can tell you. There is a period wherein this stuff is an intellectual model that one uses to navigate reality or something like that. And there is a period at which it becomes kind of actualized in real practice, and these alternate back and forth. This would be my experience. Throughout your life, it alternates back and forth. You get it as an intellectual construct, and then you're like, it's just an intellectual construct, and then one day, bang-o, it makes sense, and then you're like, whoa, wow, I got it, it makes sense, and then a few months or weeks or years later, you're like, it's just an intellectual exercise, and then a little while later, bang-o, you get it again, and it just goes like that, and that's the way it goes. So the fire boy comes seeking fire, or the child of fire comes seeking fire. I just like that version better. Maybe it's not as accurate as the fire boy, looking at the footnotes. I guess their version is more accurate, but I like the child of fire comes seeking fire better. Anyway, that's the answer. Did I give you an answer? No, because all I can give you is an intellectual construct, and I'm doing the best I can, but you got to seek it for yourself. You got to work on it, and working on it will eventually bear something out and you'll go, whoa, what that guy told me on the internet, or what your teacher told you, or whatever, whoever first gave it to you, you're going to go, oh, that guy wasn't BSing me. He was telling me the truth. At least that's the way it was for me. So good luck with that. Keep on sitting, keep on doing what you do. If you want to support me sitting and doing what I do, you can go to the URL you're seeing below on the screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. I don't know if I'm really pointing at it because I can't see it. Hardcorezen, maybe it's over here, .info/donate, hardcorezen.info/donate. That is where you will find my PayPal and Patreon links. Those are my ways of making a living these days, and I really appreciate your support because that's what I got to deal with. That's what I got to live on, and I like it when you support me. But as always, this is offered for free, so you don't got to donate if you don't want to donate. I've already gone too long, so we will see you again. Have a good time all the time. Bye. Ziggy, wait a minute. Do you want to go back inside? Ziggy, are you tired of the cold out here and you want to go back inside? Hey, Ziggy, at least look at the folks. Okay. Well, I'll let you back in. We'll see you later. Bye. At least you got to see his fluffy butt.